Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Movie Nights Roundtable Live. It is me, Dalton Burdett, and the amazing Nicholas Iricchio. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, buddy?
Good as always, good as always. We have a heck of a show for you guys today. We're mostly going to be going over the recap from the Academy Awards, which, by the way, you can watch our reaction to each award. We recorded ourselves watching the ceremony. It's on the channel up right now. We also have some news stories to cover from last week, which we didn't get to cover just due to being busy and honestly really just trying to get down our Oscar predictions. That kind of takes up an overwhelming majority of time when it comes that time to make those calls. So that's where we're at, but we wanted to kind of go back and look at some stories that happened at that time. And we have a ton of stories to get to, so without further ado, Nicholas, let's dive into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
First, a quick Oscar recap. Kieran Culkin won Best Supporting Actor for A Real Pain, which was no surprise. This is one of the few big frontrunner things of the evening. Moving on, animated feature film went to Flow, which you called. I gotta give it to you.
I did.
Gotta give you credit where it's due.
Strong.
You did call it. You really gotta take the wins where you can get them. In the Shadow of the Cypress won Best Animated Short Film. Nobody got this right. Like nobody predicted this to happen.
And I saw them all. I saw all of them and got 0 points.
And listen, good for them though. Good for them. You love to see it.
Yeah.
You really do. Wicked won Best Costume Design, which we figured was kind of a lock there. Original Screenplay went to Anora, which we also predicted would happen. Not the only time you're going to see Anora on this list. Conclave got Adapted Screenplay, which we also predicted. Very cool to see. The Substance got Makeup and Hairstyling. If it didn't, that would have been horseshit, so I'm glad that it did. Film editing went to Anora, and this is when we figured out that, oh shit, Sean Baker might break the record for most Oscars won in a single night for the same film. Walt Disney also won 4 Oscars in a night, but it was for different projects. And Sean Baker won Best Editing for Anora, and of all his speeches, well, first of all, I like that he gave a bunch of speeches that were different, but they felt the same level of sincerity. But the joke about, like, I saved this film in the edit, this director should never work again, I thought was a really funny joke. So was happy to see that. Best Supporting Actress went to Zoe Saldana, which we figured would happen for Emilia Perez, and it's a great performance. She's the great actor. I'm glad it happened. Production Design went to Wicked, which I changed my answer from the Wabam podcast, and I'm glad I did because it ended up winning. El Mal got Best Original Song. Diane Warren made some sort of deal with Satan to where she could never win this award. Documentary short film went to The Only Girl in the Orchestra, which I called. I said this would happen. Netflix and their money, don't deny it.
You did get that one.
You called this. No Other Land won Best Documentary Feature Film, and I thought this had one of the best, most profound speeches of the whole night. I really liked the speech that the filmmakers gave after winning this, and I hope that it can get distribution now. Best Noise went to Dune Part 2.
Than it does distribution.
That's true. Best Noise went to Dune Part 2. I thought Wicked was going to steal this one, but I'm glad that Dune won this award. It deserves it. Dune Part 2 also won Best Visual Effects, as it should have. Amazing visual effects in that film. Live action short film went to I'm Not a Robot, which I also called. Thank you very much. Best Cinematography.
And tell the people why you voted for it.
Because I am also not a robot, and I figured we should share that sentiment. Best Cinematography went to The Brutalist for Lol Crawley.
You fucking got 5 points for that.
Listen, the bit pays off sometimes. It does.
It does. It does.
The Brutalist is a beautiful film, so of course it got Best Cinematography. Was happy to see that. It could have gone to, honestly, a lot of the films in that list. A ton of beautifully shot films this year. International Feature Film went to I'm Still Here. Yes. Was very happy to see that. Very glad that it was able to not only win, because honestly, it's just a great film, and I'm glad to see it get rewarded. It deserved to be rewarded. Original score went to The Brutalist. Fucking bum, 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 bum. You love to see it. Actor in a leading role went to Adrian Brody, and he had the longest speech in Oscar history at 5 minutes and 45 seconds, despite his insistence that he would be brief. And it was also one of the most boring and plain speeches I've ever heard. And I say that as a huge Adrian Brody fan. What a boring-ass speech.
I swear,
Best Director.
I don't know what he was trying to say or anything about it.
Yeah, no, me neither. Best Director went to Sean Baker for Anora, his third win of the evening. And I believe, was it this speech where he talked about movie theaters? Because I really liked that speech. We talked about the importance of
I
movie
believe so.
theaters.
Yeah, I don't think they ended Best Picture with that one.
Yeah. Excellent speech again from Sean Baker. Actress in a leading role, Mikey Madison, which I did change my answer to. Thank God. Thank God. I thought that she gave an incredible performance. I would have been happy if it went to Demi Moore as well, or even Cynthia Erivo, honestly, or even oh my gosh, I'm blanking.
Fernanda Torres.
Fernanda Torres, thank you, Nicholas. I would have been happy with all of them winning, but she won, and I thought she gave a really heartwarming speech. I can't wait for her to make some money on her next project now that she's an Oscar winner.
My favorite thing was everyone just saying Mikey winning over Demi is literally just the plot of The Substance.
Kind of. It kind of is, if you think about it. And, of course, Anora won Best Picture as well, a $6 million independent film. You love to see it. You love to see Anora winning Best Picture. Now that we kind of did the run-through, Nicholas, were there any particular moments from the ceremony that you wanted to bring up and talk about as well?
I don't necessarily know of any moments, but I thought there were some very good speeches. I like sort of seeing the difference in people's speech approaches, whereas Adrian Brody gave this long running speech where I swear I don't remember anything he was saying or what he was even trying to say, versus like Kieran Culkin's like, you owe me a baby to my wife. Kieran walked up, grabbed the Oscar, and said, "I'm getting late tonight."
Yeah.
But also just overall a wonderful shout out to Conan O'Brien. I think that this was honestly a fantastic show this year, especially in a year that a lot of people said have had like a lot of sort of mid movies. So I think Conan did a great job. I think he should be contracted and signed up tomorrow to host next year's. I could see this being a thing he does long forward because he handled everything well. They threw a lot of punches that I was not expecting them to throw. To me, I thought his monologue was not landing with the audience at all, but I thought that they were just some of the funniest jokes.
I loved it.
Of the evening, and the whole bit with like the firemen saying the jokes.
Yes.
Like I thought he just did. I thought it was a very well written, well produced show. I thought Conan was a tremendous host. And there were really no like surprises or upsets. I would say I think everything sort of played out roughly how we were expecting it from the acting categories. There was no shocks. It was like, oh, it's going to be one of these two front runners in like every category, and one of the two front runners won.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. I also thought Conan O'Brien did an excellent job as the host. The Drake Kendrick joke was fucking hysterical, and there were plenty of other amazing jokes that he had. I also think that speech-wise, or honestly not even speech-wise, but just like Oscar moment-wise, I love when just like memes get created and born. And just the entire internet seeing the guy who did the score for The Brutalist and being like, look at this fucking freak, but in a positive way. They were like, we love this guy. He's a real life vampire. He's not fooling anybody. Look at him go. And just his whole vibe on stage was also really funny because he even made fun of the people for singing when the people for Best Song won, which was the cringiest part of the night. He even like joked and sang part a little bit at the end. I thought that it was just really funny to see, and just, you always get that fun vibe the whole time of just kind of seeing that happen in these Oscar moments that are really great and really fun and impactful. And we got plenty of them throughout the show, and it was really, really great to see. Another great Oscar ceremony for the books. I thought that the show actually was really well done. And again, Conan O'Brien, going to what Nick was saying earlier, should absolutely host again. He did a fantastic job. And hold on, I'm pulling Nick back on the stream here. Hi, buddy. Are you back?
I don't know what happened. My internet is just fucked right now.
It's all good, buddy. It happens.
Right.
You should.
I literally can't. The YouTube video that I'm playing also to watch it is just not even moving.
You know what? It'd be like that sometimes. When it's done, you got to go back and see how smoothly I handled the transition to that single. Oh, you would have loved it. You're a sucker for the show going on. But guys, what did you think about the Academy Awards last night? Were you surprised to see anything? Do you have any particular favorite moments? Please let us know in the comments down below as we move on to our first news story from last week, Nicholas. I think it's fair to say that Kathleen Kennedy's been somewhat a divisive head of Lucasfilm. Would you say?
Yes, I would.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Kathleen Kennedy is, let's not, pull, like, she's one of the best movie producers that's ever lived. Steven Spielberg, one of the best filmmakers of all time, has said that she is one of the best producers ever, that he couldn't be able to make the movies he made without her, and the way that she was able to kind of really go to bat for him whenever studios and people did not want to give him what he needed for his vision. She was always there. She was always working. She's also the partner of Frank Marshall, who is also an amazing producer, and they're kind of a powerhouse in Hollywood. George Lucas handpicked her to run Lucasfilm back when he sold it to Disney, and with all the amazing things I just said about her and her career and how awesome she is, unfortunately, just wasn't really the right match for Lucasfilm. And now, don't get me wrong, numbers-wise, she's made a $2 billion film. She's made the highest-grossing film domestically in history, and that probably will never be broken. She's made 2 other billion-dollar films other than the $2 billion film. Actually, 3, because Rogue One, I think, made $1 billion as well. So, and she has hit shows like The Mandalorian, which was a huge hit, especially its first 2 seasons. So she's done some great stuff in terms of numbers with the brand, and I've liked most of the projects that have come out. There are some that I didn't particularly enjoy. I think Andor is the best thing that Star Wars has done since the original trilogy, which you have to thank her a little bit for as well. But for the most part, she also oversaw the first flop in Star Wars history with Solo. She also oversaw just a lot of lackluster or mediocre projects on TV, and was just kind of very moving the franchise in a directionless way to kind of have projects happen at random. And it really kind of diluted the Star Wars brand to where Star Wars used to be this event, like, especially because you had to wait every 10 years for a new trilogy. And it like, people have small memories, but dude, I remember 2014, 2015, and how fucking stoked you couldn't go anywhere without someone bringing up like, bruh, Star Wars is coming out, like, it's back, we're back, and it just being like a really big deal. And unfortunately, the direction that it's taken has, it's hurt it. And even someone who's a big fan of Kathleen Kennedy like myself would say, like, she was not a good fit as the lead of Lucasfilm, and she probably honestly should have stepped away a long time ago. But it's official. It looks like she's going to be stepping down from Lucasfilm this year. Now, initial reports had mentioned that she was just going to straight up retire, but an article came out later kind of debunking that. It was in THR and the trades, I believe. I believe the link we have for is to Hollywood Reporter. Also Indiana Jones, right? She oversaw Indiana Jones 5, which is also a flop for her. There's no word on a replacement yet, but if you go into the article, and I think there's one on Deadline as well where she does an interview, she is quoted as saying, because she dispelled the retirement rumor, because she did say that she's going to probably step down from Lucasfilm before the end of the year, which is what the thing is, before the end of the year. But she's also quoted saying, "I will die making movies," which is such a baller thing to say. And I liked that quote a lot. But as someone who's a massive fan of Star Wars and someone who's a massive fan of her, it just wasn't meshing. It just couldn't come together. It's kind of like you can take a great... I'm about to do a sports analogy, which I never fucking do. But sometimes you can take a great coach with a great team, and for whatever reason, they're just not... They just don't gel. And that's kind of what happened here. And I think that her going back to just being a producer is going to be really good for her. She's going to get a lot more satisfaction out of it. She wasn't really meant to be a studio executive. But... well, now, does this mean Star Wars is going to be great all of a sudden? Well, that completely fucking depends on her replacement. There are a lot of people who are suggesting, like Dave Filoni. As someone who's kind of grown to slowly appreciate Dave Filoni's work a little bit more and more, I think this would be a horrible idea. I think you should not do that. It would just kind of take Star Wars into this very niche corner that only a small section of the fandom was a huge fan of, and it would kind of alienate more fans than it would create, in my opinion. I do think he's slowly becoming a better live-action director, which is interesting, but bad idea. I personally think you should get someone who has executive experience or someone who is just about to be promoted to that executive level, and this is a big promotion they could take from whatever company. Like, honestly, I would love to learn that the new person running Lucasfilm is someone that I've never fucking heard of. That's what I would love to see. And just have it be somebody who's not going to be tied to any particular type of story within Star Wars, and just kind of have a new bold direction for it to take. Now, there's been some rumors that Kevin Feige might take over Lucasfilm and leave Marvel once he's done, whenever that is. It's a lateral move. You know, like he'd be doing the same thing he does for Marvel, but just for another company. I don't see him doing it. I know he's a big Star Wars fan, and at one point he was going to produce a Star Wars movie, but I just don't see him taking the job. I think he would want to get promoted and do something higher than what he's doing now. Personally, maybe I'm wrong. Watch tomorrow, he's announced. But speaking of him making a Star Wars movie, I think it leads to one of the biggest failures of her run is that there were so many canceled Star Wars projects, so many projects that could not get past anything, and it was mostly because her and Lucasfilm, not just her, but Lucasfilm and the directors could not get on the same page, or they kind of lied to each other and said they were on the same page and then realized once it was too late, like, oh, we're actually not on the same page, like Phil and Lord and Miller on Solo, the Josh Trank Boba Fett movie that never happened, the Taika Waititi Star Wars movie that never happened, the Kevin Feige Star Wars movie that never happened. I could go on and on. There's so much to say in regard to that. But Nick, I just fucking rambled for a hot minute there. But I kind of want to get your thoughts on this. You know, legacy person, not a very legacy run with Star Wars. What are your kind of overall thoughts on her stepping down? And, what, direction do you think Star Wars should take from here?
I'm not sure. Well, because it's sort of a thing, right? We're talking about Lucasfilm, which also does include Indiana Jones. Now,
Yes.
I don't think there's any immediate plans for the Indiana Jones franchise, but I think it would be off to have someone like, I'm sure Dave Filoni does have a love and admiration for the Indiana Jones franchise, but his blood, sweat, and tears is Star Wars. So I think it would be almost counterintuitive to have someone who's that invested also then being in charge of Indiana Jones, especially someone who maybe is not at that studio head executive level. Now, I think that it would be more beneficial, right, is to have a studio executive, a studio head who knows how to get movies made, who knows how to do this, right? And then you branch it out, right? So you go, okay, Dave Filoni, you now have creative control over Star Wars. But like I still get the final say in producing. I'm still the we're in this together, but you can shepherd Star Wars, but I have to focus on Lucasfilm and the greater strategy of everything as a whole. I could see being more beneficial.
Kind of like a Gunn
But
Safran
no, I agree.
situation.
I think I'm sorry?
Kind of like a James Gunn, Peter Safran situation.
Yeah, exactly. But not even that. Like, well, yeah, because I guess is Peter Safran still like Warner Brothers?
No, he's DC. He's the co-head of DC with James Gunn.
Like, I mean, like Lucasfilm, right? Have a head of Lucasfilm and then have a head of a Star Wars division.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like the Kathleen, like Dave Filoni would be directly under Kathleen Kennedy, but he's shepherding Star Wars and she's handling Lucasfilm.
Mm-hmm.
It's
right.
having that trust, right? Your second in command, if you will. Because I think that there's other ways to expand all these franchises. And I don't know if someone who's in that Star Wars universe would be able to take that, but I think, she's canceled a lot more movies than she's had made in the Star Wars universe.
That's true.
And the downside to it is it looks bad optics wise on the outside, but what if these movies were just shit and not developing, so maybe behind the scenes, yeah, it was a great call. And to my understanding is I don't think people have had a bad thing to say about her, like in terms of working with her, right?
Not that we're aware of, no. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think her biggest fumble, personally, as a Star Wars person, is just not giving Bryce Dallas Howard a movie to do whatever the fuck she wants with. That's the biggest crime she's committed, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Howard coming in to finish off Solo was the best thing for the Star Wars franchise because it gave us Bryce Dallas Howard.
Listen, long term, you gotta think ahead. You gotta think ahead.
Yep. You do.
Absolutely.
You do.
Yeah, but guys,
we'll see who she takes in.
Oh, go ahead. I'll let you get a new thought in.
Who they get to replace. I'd say, just see who they get in and who they decide to bring in. I would not be shocked if it's someone outside that comes in and is just like, you are now in charge.
Yeah, no, that's what I hope they do. But guys, what do you think about Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm? Not going to retire. She's going to die making movies. But what do you think about her leaving Lucasfilm? Let us know in the comments as we move on to our next story. And Nicholas, this next story I find a little bit interesting. We've recently talked about the James Bond situation in the franchise of the Broccoli's kind of giving off creative control back to Amazon. And we have some more details regarding that. basically, the big part of this in this road to Amazon with James Bond, I'm going to pull up the Variety article here, is one specific thing that I wanted to talk about. Because this article is great, by the way, if anyone wants to visit this Variety article. But the big thing that it really talks about here, I'm going to try to see if I can pinpoint exactly where it says it. But essentially, something that people have been, here it is, something that people have been very excited about the idea of is Christopher Nolan doing a James Bond movie. A lot of people have been really excited about that idea. And apparently at one point, it could have happened. Pulling from Variety here, some say Broccoli was too cautious and exerted outsized control to the detriment of Bond. Sources say that Christopher Nolan expressed interest in directing a Bond movie following the release of Tenet, but Broccoli made it clear that no director would ever have final cut while Bond was under her purview. Nolan, a final cut director, wound up making Oppenheimer as his follow-up to Tenet instead, and we kind of all know what happened with Oppenheimer from there. It became a huge smash hit. It won Best Picture, got him Best Director. But I found this to be an interesting topic of discussion regarding the Broccolis, because we were very pro-Broccoli on the last show that we did about how this is really bad that they don't have control over it anymore. But does it have its negative effects of not allowing filmmakers like a prestige filmmaker like Christopher Nolan to come in and want to do it? Now, my opinion on this may shock you. As much as I would love, dude, I would fucking love to see Christopher Nolan make a James Bond movie. That'd be awesome. I also understand the slippery slope you'd be on if you're Barbara Broccoli. It's like, if I give you final cut, which, by the way, please understand, I'm going to cut to my single for this. Please understand, almost no director gets final cut on any movie, let alone James Bond. Like Chris Nolan, maybe Denis Villeneuve, Spielberg, Tarantino. That might be it. Like, that might be the people who get final cut on their movies. Like, it's such a small thing. And like Christopher Nolan rightfully has earned that status. So naturally he wants to keep it. And going on, I can kind of see Barbara Broccoli's position, though, of being like, if I give you final cut on this movie, what's stopping the floodgate of people coming in whenever we try to make a James Bond movie and then it goes to shit because they think they're going to get final cut and it becomes a whole thing, you know, like, so while I'm disappointed that we didn't get the Chris Nolan James Bond movie, I think it would have been pretty fucking, like, dumb of Barbara Broccoli to kind of open that floodgate and allow it to happen, because there have been really shit Bond movies, but there have been really great Bond movies, but they were all under the Broccoli family. And so, you know, whatever risk are being taken, whatever thing that happened, you know, and you can have great filmmakers like a Sam Mendes and Martin Campbell, like these great filmmakers come in and direct James Bond, and, you know, final cut, I get both sides of Nolan being like, I've earned this incredibly rare status, I'm going to fucking keep it. But also Robert Blackley being like, hey, good for you. I don't allow anyone to do that. And we've had Oscar-winning filmmakers make our Bond movies before. I just thought it was an interesting kind of thing to bring up. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
You know, again, it's sort of like a double-edged sword, right? I think brand preservation is important. You know, this is their IP. They have control over it. You know, and as a filmmaker or a director, right, that is the cost of playing in the sandbox, right? If Christopher Nolan is like, James Bond is my favorite franchise of all time, I've always wanted to make a Bond movie, he should know that is the cost of doing business in the Bond world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same with, you know, Marvel allows a lot of freedom with their creatives and the directors, same with DC, right? But at the end of the day, it's Kevin Feige's movie. Mm-hmm. As studio head, as you know, and if it's like, okay, if you want to play in this sandbox, tell me your idea and we can work on it together. But ultimately, you know, like, this is Marvel's movie, not your movie, which is a dangerous precedent to have, right? But again, if that's something you're passionate about or just want a paycheck, right? That's sort of the, you know, it's the cost of doing business. The Bond franchise has been around for decades. It will continue to be around for decades. And when it stops working, they pivot and change, because you had Daniel Craig be this James Bond that was a little more reflective of the times, right? You have the whole, like, I think you're misogynistic, whatever speech, right? From which one is it? Casino?
I believe it was Casino Royale. Yeah,
one of the two. You know, you have that, so it shows that also they're not afraid to take that IP in new directions, to take it and have it change and adapt to the times. You know, but ultimately it is their decision to make with that as it being their IP. Now, could they have a lot of interesting things moving forward? should they allow that freedom in the final cut? Yes, especially if you want to attract those prestigious filmmakers like a Christopher Nolan. But it sets a dangerous precedent for filmmakers that follow on that regard, and same for, you know, probably gives Christopher Nolan a lot of headache of like him going now his bargaining power is gone, right? If he goes to another studio after James Bond saying, "I won't do it if I don't have final cut," and they go, "Well, you did James Bond without final cut. What's the issue?"
Yeah.
So I think everyone's just set in their ways, and for better or for worse. But I don't think I necessarily disagree with Barbara Broccoli's stance on it, but I think it is a roadblock to the overall potential the franchise could be in.
I think you nailed that. I agree with you 100%. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for both sides. And this is just interesting things that you can see in this movie world, and I thought it'd be interesting to bring up. So thank you for participating in that conversation with me, Nicholas. Guys, what were your thoughts? Do you kind of see the double-edged sword that both of them were in? I'm really curious to your opinion on that situation. Let us know in the comments below as we move on to our next story. And Nicholas, you got to protect the hive, man.
The hive must be protected at all costs. And you know what? It needs to be protected once more.
That is because we have official word that a Beekeeper sequel is here. Now, it should be pointed out that David Ayer is not going to be directing this film, which, is kind of sad. But if you're going to be replaced by somebody, maybe you get the guy who does The Night Comes for Us. He's also directing the sequel to Nobody. This guy's just coming in on the sequels, baby. He's coming in on all of them. But Jason Statham is returning, obviously. He's going to start shooting this fall. And David Ayer will still be producing the film. We're taking all of this from Deadline, by the way. I'm going to butcher this last name, so I'm just going to say Timo for the director. The Night Comes for Us. If you have not seen that movie, it's a Netflix movie that was purchased at a film festival. It fucking rules. And it's from the same stunt team and a lot of the same cast as the Raid movies, which I love, are near and dear to my heart. So, Nick, I'm going to give you a fucking single for this. This is your moment, buddy. Are you excited for the Beekeeper sequel?
I mean, absolutely. I was a huge fan and pleasantly surprised by the first one. I am actively excited for Working Man, the next David Ayers, Jason Statham collaboration here. But a few points. One, I was not expecting a sequel for The Beekeeper, but we have to keep in mind it was pretty successful at the box office. I mean, it didn't do crazy numbers, but I believe it did reach its profitability, which is a huge success for a time when people necessarily aren't flooding to the theaters for action movies, but they will for Jason Statham. It is sad not to see David Ayer coming back. I think he has found a rhythm. If Working Man, is as fun and entertaining as The Beekeeper was, I think he's found a great rhythm there. But the interesting thing is, right? I've seen that the Night Comes for Us. I may be butchering the title. I thought it was very well done, and it actively got me excited for Nobody 2. A movie that was also pleasantly surprising and entertaining. And it's just like, oh, that guy's doing Nobody 2. Oh, we're in for a treat. And that movie hasn't even come out yet. And it's also making me excited for this movie. I'm like, what do you mean the guy who did Nobody 2 is doing The Beekeeper 2? A movie I haven't seen yet. But just the general, I think it's I don't know how to explain it, but it got me excited. And also, he retweeted the news, the director, and said, "The Beekeeper 2, to be or not to be," which immediately tells me he's the right guy for the job.
Yes, he knows exactly what he's doing.
Boosted my confidence even farther. Now, do I think it'll actually be called that? No, I think they'll just probably keep with a Beekeeper 2. But regardless, give me Jason Statham in an action movie, ideally chucking jars of honey at people, and my ass is in the seat day one.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here, so I'm not going to be mad if you can't come up with anything. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Your title for The Beekeeper 2, go. Dead air.
Oh, man. I don't know. I feel like there's right, you get The Beekeeper, to be or not to be is the easy fun one, right? I think you go Beekeeper something with like the hive or a swarm or something.
The Swarm. Okay, I like the Swarm.
the Beekeeper into the hornet's nest.
Yes, or you find out there's another organization called the Swarm or the Hornet's Nest, and it's Beekeeper, Return of the Swarm, or Return of the Hornet's Nest, and it's like a whole fucking thing.
Like they're a rival agency, or there's some like terrorist organization that he needs to stop.
That reminds me, the Guy Ritchie movie Operation Fortune, which I love that movie. There's a running bit. I think I'm thinking of the right movie. If I'm not, correct me. And also has Jason Statham. There's a running bit in that movie where this spy agency keeps running into a rival spy agency on the same job, and they're always like, "Fucking damn it! Like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm in the middle of the job," and it's so funny, dude. If they do that with a Beekeeper, that'd be so great.
That'd be pretty good.
Anyway, guys, Beekeeper 2.
No, I'm excited. It's great news all around.
Yes. What do you think about Beekeeper 2 finally happening? Let us know in the comments as we move on to our next story. And Nicholas, this next story involves something that we love very much and a person we love very much. Nick and I have seen, this is all we can say at this time, we have seen all of Daredevil Born Again Season 1. The review drops tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's when the review embargo lifts for the whole season. So come back and watch it there. But we already have news about Season 2, my friend. We are getting an appearance from Matthew Lillard as he has joined Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Now, his role is not known, because why would Marvel be cool and let us know stuff? But it's actually started filming, I believe, yesterday. And of course, character details being kept a secret. But look, Matthew Lillard is no stranger to joining geek and nerd, adjacent culture stories. He was just in Five Nights at Freddy's. He was in Scooby-Doo famously. He's amazing in the Scream franchise, which has its own whole set of fans. I love this guy. I think he's a fantastic actor. I think he's a wonderful guy. If you've ever got to go to a con and get to interact with or meet him, he's a very lovely person. But let's get down to brass tacks, Nicholas. I'm very surprised by this. I'm very pleasantly surprised that he's going to be in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. And I got to say, I'm all about it. I am all about this. So I'm going to put you on the spot again. This is twice in our live show I'm putting you on the spot. Who do you think he's playing?
Ooh, a character in the Daredevil comics that I have, and also the Spider-Man comics, I think that's his first appearance even. There's a character called Sin Eater, which I have always wanted to see adapted in live action. I really like this character. I have the first appearance comic of the character. Coincidentally, I picked up a comic that had a cool cover, and then I read through it. I'm like, oh, I like this Sin Eater character. And I sort of collected the whole arc of Sin Eater, and then I found out that the one I picked up happened to be coincidentally his first appearance.
Dude, you do that all the time. Guys, he once bought me a string of Captain America comics that just happened to be the first appearance of Crossbones. It's like he keeps doing that.
Yeah. And I think I got you the first micro from Punisher as well.
I think so.
I think so, yeah. Purely by chance, I go, oh, Dalton likes Punisher, and it's his birthday. Let me grab this one. But that's a character that I'd love to see. I don't know how he would fit in based off of what we've seen of Season 1, which is all of it. I'm very scared to keep talking.
You're good.
So obviously that would be they don't set up Sin Eater. I think I could safely say that. But it's a character I've long wanted to see, and I think Matthew Lillard's a great actor. It would allow him to, he's been playing these sort of psychotic characters that I think would be fun to really see. But this started filming. Scream 7 is about to start filming, and he is also in that, which tells me that one of those roles is going to be smaller than the other.
Oh, yes.
Part of me feels like it's Scream.
Likely.
And that maybe he'll be in this. But if they're running it right, so my heart wants to say Sin Eater. My logical brain I feel like he's going to be a new priest, because obviously the main priest, Father Lantom, was killed by Bullseye in season 3 of the Netflix series. Spoiler alert. And go to the show's religious themes. There is that sort of absence, and I could see Matthew Lillard maybe wanted to take on a nice kind of a role, right? Have these deep, rich, philosophical, religious conversations and being that sort of guiding light and calmness versus the psychoticness.
No, that's a good idea. The priest idea. It'd be cool to see Sin Eater. I want him to be Stiltman so badly. Just let him be Stiltman.
Big wheel, big wheel.
A big wheel. Oh my god. But I just think that he has that really like vibrant personality that could do it. But even though that does not fit tonally in what the Netflix show or Born Again does at all. But I just thought that'd be funny to bring up. But guys, Matthew Lillard has joined Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Who do you think he's playing? What would you like to see? Let us know in the comments as we move on to our last news story before the box office. And Nicholas, a while ago, back when Bob Chapek was running Disney, and they announced that they were doing everything under the sun for Disney+, one of the things they announced was a television series surrounding Princess Tiana from Princess and the Frog. Well, it's not happening anymore. But that's not really the big story that gets revealed from the article that we're sourcing from THR. Disney Animation will no longer make original long-form content for streaming, period. That is a win. That is a huge win. However, it does suck for fans of Princess and the Frog and Princess Tiana. It was announced in 2020 as a musical featuring Anika Noni Rose reprising the role. In the article, however, it does say that they are going to be doing a new project with Tiana, like maybe like a one-off for Disney+, like a special presentation kind of thing that Marvel kind of does, but that it will not be the show. Because we've said it before and we'll say it again, for the love of God, don't pour money into something that you're never going to make back by putting it on streaming. You saw them pivot with Moana 2 and put Moana 2 in theaters, and it made over $1 billion fucking dollars. Now, the article does go on to say that they tried to kind of make something work with what they have to release something, but it just wasn't coming together and they didn't want to pour more money into it. But at least they're going to be doing something, and now they've learned their fucking lesson in that they can't be doing this. They need to be just releasing stuff in theaters and making the money that they're pouring into it, for the love of God. Dude, I'm going to have to make the documentary about the FOMO on the streaming wars. I'm going to have to do it. Like, it's the most fascinating bullshit I've ever come across in like covering the movie space ever. It's insanity. It's insanity, the things these companies were doing, burning money because they wanted to look cool and have the cool streaming service because streaming was cool now. It's unbelievable. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on the series getting scrapped? And what are your thoughts on just Disney overall finally shifting into a direction where they're not going to be doing long-form content for Disney Plus anymore?
Now this was not made yet, right? This is just like we couldn't crack it.
They were in the middle of making it. They've already spent a lot of money. They're Zasliving it.
Oh wow. I mean, it's always sad to see that, especially people that, it's a very difficult thing to get something made to begin with. So to be in the midst of that and having it thrown out, I feel bad for the creative teams behind it and everyone involved in the project. But I think it's ultimately long term a smarter move, right? Because I mean, they've released how many shorts on Disney Plus or series, and I have not watched a good chunk of them. It's that oversaturation of the market. It's the over, all the content of everything. And animation is not cheap. And you can tell good quality animation versus bad quality animation. And when you're rushing these outputs and like, oh, it's going on streaming, it's okay. You're tarnishing your brand of Disney animation, of Pixar animation, these once highly reputable animation studios. You're looking at the quality and output. They're like, oh, well, let's look at their last 5 projects. Oh, they were just dumped on streaming. It's a sad thing to see. And I think Disney's always been one to hold back on there. I mean, when's the last time you saw Mickey Mouse in a movie? You remember? I at least I grew up with House of Mouse, House of Villains, the Three Mouseketeers. All these fun. But Mickey is just now just existing because everyone knows it. But I think there's a lot of story to tell and fun animation to do that with. But I mean, I think it's a smart move. I think Disney Plus should have always been sort of the home for watching these things with new content sprinkled up. Like I think, the Marvel series, the Star Wars series, I think they're a good fit for Disney Plus. But ultimately, I think that the stories have been lacking, in varying in degrees of quality. But when they hit that gold one, you're like, yes, this is why we do it. So I mean, it's sad to see it scrap, but I think in the greater scheme of things, it's moving toward a more positive trend where maybe they can, it just feels like they're not holding the IPs to the value that they should be at.
Mm.
And I think we're starting to see that sort of trend from milking the IPs for everything that they're worth toward really taking their time and wanting to, preserve them and have that right. Because I think they did still say there's like a Tiana special presentation, if you will, that they're still going to be working on. So it shows that they do want to do stuff with these characters, but I think it's all part of the old regime under Bob Chapek and these output quality and the output, just the sheer amount of output that they were required to release these series and movies and everything. I think, I think that it became, well, make it a TV show. Or like, yes, we
Mhm.
could stitch together this TV show into a movie and release it in theaters, obviously to good results, such as Moana 2. But, I think that it did not leave a lot of room for, well, what can this be? Right? Like we just announced or, on the show, I think last week, that Daredevil or Punisher was getting a special presentation. 2 years ago, they would have forced that into a 6, 7, 8 episode miniseries.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
So I think it's a step toward the positive, and in the right direction. But I do still feel bad for all the creative teams who had put their time and energy and effort and passion into this project.
No, I'm with you 100%. But guys, comes down to you. What do you think about not only this series being scrapped, but Disney's overall direction in animation no longer doing long form content for Disney Plus? Let us know in the comments below as we move on to the box office.
The box office.
So, I was absolute shit in my predictions. I got one right, being Captain America coming in first. Nick, you got 3 right with Captain America coming in first, Paddington coming in fourth, and Dogman coming in fifth. And as I say on the show all the time, if you comment your predictions when we make ours on the current video, if you're right, I will shout you out on the show. And I'm happy to say we have a viewer who was right. And it's time to shout them out on the show. Getting it correctly. The first. Getting it correctly. Let me just pull it up so I make sure everything's correct here. From Morgan Bernard 9853. Thank you. Nice little fan. Captain America Brave New World number 1, Last Breath number 2, The Monkey number 3, Paddington in Peru number 4, and Dogman number 5. And that was the top 5 at the box office. Thank you, Morgan Bernard 9853. We really appreciate you watching and for commenting it correctly. Guys, when we do our predictions at the end, if you comment and you're correct, we will shout you out on the next episode. Take 9853 as an example. Now, switching over
They did
to,
a wonderful job. Thank you for watching.
Yes, they did. Taking it to the actual numbers website, let's kind of dive into some more specific numbers, shall we? Give me a second to get my life together. Okay. Captain America Brave New World made $14 million in its third week, dropping 47% from last week. Last Breath in its opening weekend made $7.8 million, coming in its first weekend in second place. The Monkey dropped 54% from week 1 to week 2, making another $6.4 million. Paddington in Peru dropped 31% from week 2 to week 3, making $4.5 million. And Dogman dropped 28% from week 4 to week 5, making $4.2 million. Diving into it more specifically, Captain America Brave New World now has $341 million worldwide. It is only at about 1.9 times that production budget, and that's just a reported budget of 180. This could end up being a money loser for Marvel and Disney, which I'm a little bit shocked by. I mean, I didn't expect it to be a huge monster hit, but I also did not expect it to actually be a money loser, so we'll have to keep our eye on it and see how it goes through the summer. Jeez, it's through the fucking spring. Last Breath now has $7.9 million worldwide. It doesn't have a budget listed here, and I couldn't find one in my brief research before the show, but it can't obviously be too cheap of a movie because it has underwater visual effects and things, so I imagine it's in that mid 20 to 50 range. I know that's a wide range, but we'll have to see and figure out how well that number actually is for it. I don't imagine it's actually that great, but hey, maybe the budget was lower than I thought. The Monkey now has $28 million worldwide on a budget of 11. That's 2.6. We are likely seeing profitability for the Monkey starting now. Good for them. Good for Osgood Perkins. Paddington in Peru now has $164 million worldwide on a budget of 75.3. It's at 2.2. It's just on the cusp of profitability, but at the same time, I don't know how much marketing it spent in America because I barely saw trailers for it, and it already made banger money overseas, so good for Paddington in Peru. And lastly, Dogman now has $113 million worldwide on a budget of 40. That's 2.8. Dogman's been profitable. It's been raking in money. Good for Dogman.
Good for
Nicholas,
Dogman.
Before we go, as always, it's time to make our predictions, and you, my friend, are going first.
Must I? What comes out next week? I know we have tickets to Mickey 17.
Yes. I know that comes out. Let me kind of pull it up and see what else is coming out that week. All right. We love when we do
Novocaine,
this.
right?
No, that's the week after.
Is it?
Yeah. So new movies, and we live in a city, so these could be somewhat limited releases. We have, obviously, Mickey 17, Night of the Zoopocalypse, which has one showtime at 2 p.m. I wouldn't count on it doing well. Rule Breakers, In the Lost Lands, and Queen of the Ring. So, there you have it.
Oh, boy. I think I'm going to go Mickey 17, number 1.
Okay.
I think it can get over the 4. I'm going to immediately follow that by Captain America Brave New World.
Okay.
Followed by, I'm going to go with The Monkey, bumping back up to 3rd.
Okay.
With Last Breath and coming in 4th. And by God, I think Dogman's going to do it. I think Dogman's going to stay in the top 5. And I think Paddington is going to drop out.
Okay. Interesting. I like it. I'm going to do the exact same thing as you, except I'm going to put Paddington in that last spot.
Okay.
I think Paddington will prevail. That should be the title of the next movie. But that's where I'm at, because I agree. I think Mickey 17 is going to open. I've not looked at any tracking, so if this is completely wrong, please feel free to laugh at me in the comments. I could see this having like a $30 million opening. So, maybe that's wishful thinking, but we'll see. I think the trailers have been just weird enough for people to get curious to go see it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are our predictions, and 9853 has been commenting in the live chat. Just did. I got it right. I'm so happy. Thanks for the shout out. Of course, Morgan. Of course. And thank you for participating as always. You did a great job getting it right. And guys, again, use her as an example. Comment your predictions and you will be shouted out correctly on the show if you are right. With that down, guys, that's going to be the show. Thank you as always for watching, and we will see you on the next one.